Hello everyone, my name is Hamid Azimi and I'm your host for today's TechnologyCatalogue.com webinar. I'm joined today with Timothy Black, who is the CTO at Quasset. And before I hand it to him to tell us about Asset Builder, I would like to raise 3 points. Number one, where you guys can find today's technology on TechnologyCatalogue.com. If you go to the TechnologyCatalogue.com and to the module digitalization, then you can access this technology in the sub-module asset management software. As you can see, I have indicated with a star in this slide. The second point that I wanted to raise is with respect to the questions. If you have any questions during this webinar, on the right-hand side of the screen, there is the chat feature or the chat function in which you can write your questions, and Tim will make sure to answer those at the end of his presentation. The last point that I wanted to raise is with respect to the handouts of today's session. Today, I make the presentations available as a handout to our audience, as well as a product sheet on Asset Builder, and which I make it available in a second. Having said that, without further ado, I will hand it over to Timothy for his presentation, Asset Builder. To you, sir.
Thank you, Hamid. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. My name's Tim Black, the CTO of Quasset, and I'm to talk to you today about a product that we have, which is called Asset Builder. An Asset Builder is a way to quickly build digital twins of your petrochemical assets. So this is me. My contact details are down the bottom on the right-hand side. So as it says here, I'm the CTO at Quasset. And my role is to look at innovation within the company and also outside the company, to look at how we can use new technologies, new innovations in order to really push asset management, and also to look at in other domains to see how we can bring in new ways of working from business processes to technologies into our area. I also run the Quasset test facility, which is a industrial test facility that we have in order to test many different things like robotic systems, for example, where we have decommissioned assets, for example, like a pressure vessel, that you can come and play where it's safe, warm, and dry. So first off, I would like to talk a little bit about Quasset to let you know who we are, and then I'll move on to Asset Builder, and we have a video halfway through the presentation of actually me building an asset. So Quasset, we're an asset management company, but we really focus on innovation. So I say we're more of an innovation company, where we look at capital-intensive infrastructure and how to do innovation within looking after your assets. So we have three different ways of working. We have asset management consultancy, we have digital tooling, and innovation services. So within our consultancy, a lot of people come to us and say, what's new in the areas, what's our business processes, how can we improve? And then we look at digital tooling in order to insert into business processes in order to make things more cost effective, more process effective, but also look at safety and security of personnel, for example, so assets. And then there are innovation services where we develop new products, and we also look at new innovations, for example, like robotic inspection, and how you can use them within your business. So our company founded in 2011. Our CEO and founder, Jib Obama, comes from the inspection industry. We have 4 offices around the world, Europe, 2 here in Hilversum, where I'm speaking from today, nice and sunny. We have Hausen, which is the QTF facility, which is just 20 minutes from Amsterdam. And then we have an office in Houston, Manila, and Singapore to service our clients. And then Manila is our software development team live there, and a lot of our great products where Asset Builder comes out of there. We're 30 employees, growing fast, and almost the same amount of nationalities, 15. I'm an Australian, and we're trying to keep up the Dutch side as well. So we're active in oil and gas, chemical, public infrastructure, water and energy. In the oil and gas and chemical side, we do a lot of products and services, for example, like inspection workflows, Asset Builder. as well as a lot of consultancy projects, innovation. Infrastructure and water and energy were really on the asset management side, and how do you use the tools in order to do risk forecasting, for example, to do better inspections, and also to look at new innovations that you can put in, and that's across the whole board. And one of the ways that we work is the mix of domain knowledge, business processes, and tooling. So we have a lot of experts within our company where we draw upon different fields, everyone from robotic engineers like myself, through to business analysts, financial people, inspectors, software programmers. We even have a 3D artist in-house in order to get across the look and feel of things. We look at the business processes to look at optimization between balance and cost and performance. And then we insert technology in order to improve those business processes. So we leverage these three ways of doing it against all our projects, our services, and our products. And you need that mix, so it's not technology for technology's sake, for example. It's all about the mix of the domain knowledge, business processes, and the technologies in order to get added value for all our clients. And that's what we're all about. So Asset Builder is one of the pieces of technology that were developed for this added value. And I'll take you on a little bit of a tour of how we use it and why we use it. And then, as I said before, we have a video of me building an asset. And then we'll end with a little bit of history and then also what's coming next within Asset Builder. So as I said earlier, it's all about 3D digital twins and building them really fast. And one of the reasons why we developed this software was that in the traditional sense, and if we take oil and gas and we take inspections as an example, sometimes drawings are non-existent. They're difficult to read, they're outdated. And also if you're doing, for example, inspection plans, on a head of a pressure vessel, for example, if you have some inspection locations, if you're looking at a side plate of the a side view of the drawing, you don't know if it's on the front or the back. And in the near future, we're seeing there's a great push towards digitization. So paper drawings are coming out. They're all PDF at the moment, but even these are starting to move away. And also when you use these type of drawings, which doesn't give you perspective, if you do planned, for example, man entry planning and stuff like that, it's really hard to get spatial awareness. And also too, when you build inspection reports, for an example, using 2D drawings, sometimes you can't display on where this information is located to put it into context. And that's why digitization and in particular digital twins are starting to play a very central role in asset integrity management. So these are becoming the core of the maintenance, inspection tasks, pre-operational planning, and it actually really gives perspective of what you're doing and why you're doing it in the 3D environment. Of course, it can save time. For example, looking at a report or using these outdated reports, you can actually have a centralized model which everything is tagged to. Also as well, when you're talking about 3D models, a lot of it's built in CAD programs, which are costly, specialized. They require big, huge computers and also specialized people and mechanical engineers, for example, to build them. Point clouds, for example, are also coming into our world. And these are slow and difficult in order to use on site unless you have context. So what we're trying to solve with Asset Builder is a way that you can easily build these models very, very quickly in order to have a 3D representation. So Asset Builder is designed to run in your browser. It's very fast, and you'll see by the video that I'll play is that it's a Lego style is what we call it. So you drag and click. User-friendly, so we wanted to make sure that anyone can use it. If you can move a mouse, you can build an asset. And the Lego style is what we do it, where you have preset components and you drag and drop and configure. And now one thing too is that everything's saved in the cloud, so you can access them from anywhere. But at the same time, we have an offline model version, which is exactly the same as the online version, but you can deploy that in the field on a laptop and then import and export out of the cloud version. So you could have multiple people building assets in the field, and then you can all bring them in back to a central repository to have your 3D asset database. So the best way to actually show it is to build a pressure vessel. Now, Asset Builder at the moment is just for pressure vessels, but I'll touch upon what we're working on in the new version at the end of this video. So the best way to show it is to build. Hamid, if you play the video, that'll be great. And I'll narrate this video as part of it. So I'll come off mute and then we'll pick up at the end of the video and go on. This is the demonstration of Asset Builder. Here, if you go to quasset.com/assetbuilder, you can find the login page. And once you log in, you will be presented with username and password, and that will then get you into your unique directory where all your assets are stored. Here you see some assets that I built previously, and I can view them in cards, or I can run them as a list. It depends on how many that you have. So in this screen, what you can do is you can open an asset, you can delete an asset, and also you can copy an asset. We find that copying the asset is very useful because people use assets as templates, and then they build upon it from there. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new one, and I've made already a couple that I can show you later. So let's start with a new asset, and this comes into the editor. And the editor is a 3D world, which we can interact with our mouse and zoom and pan. And on the left-hand side, you see our main menu where we can save, import, export. And down the bottom is we've got our part library. So what we'll do very simply, I'll show you how quickly it is to build quite a simple horizontal pressure vessel. So first we click our shell, and now you'll see that our shell's put into our editor, and also the parts which you have available to build a horizontal pressure vessel are shown. Okay, here I can play with my length. Okay, as you can see, I can move it up and down. And then I also can do my radius also, and the wall thickness. Okay, so let's do something very, very simple. So I'll first put some head. So I click the head, and as you can see, when I move my mouse, it's brought into the scene. And when I put my mouse on the shell, it actually snaps to each end. So this is the concept of these Lego bricks that we're talking about. So we click them, click another one here, very simple pressure vessel. Okay, and now we've got the shell and the head. So I want to raise this up off the ground. I'm going to grab some saddles, and I'm going to place the saddle onto the scene. And currently it's 300 millimeters off the ground, so I'm going to make that 1 meter, and you can see the pressure vessels then put up. And when I add my second saddle, you can see it snaps to the vessel, and also the parameters are driven across as well. So if I come along and change this to 2 meters, you'll see that it's brother here updates as well. Okay. So after that, I need a manway to get in. So I select manway, and then I can snap the manway to different orientations. So here it's either up the top or on the sides. You can also place it underneath if you want to also. Let's just place it on the side here. You can also place manways on the shell, sorry, on the head. So I can click the head and I put it in. And as you can see, when it's put on, the geometry is cut out so we actually can see the inside. I don't know if you can see it here. This is parameterized. So currently I want to give it, say, 20 bolts. And you can see it's updated. And then I want to make it a little bit bigger. So make it a bit bigger manway. And you can see it's updated to my parameters. Also, I can do the projection, so I can move it in and out. I can make it longer if I want to. And also I can do oval as well. Okay, so I've got 2 manways on my vessel. What I want to do now is add some nozzles. So we go over to the nozzles menu. And when I get the nozzle, it's once again in the scene. And I can now snap it to the surfaces that I want to put it to. This is including the head as well. So let's just put a single one up here, and then I'll put another one there. Now, a feature that we have is cloning. So when I select an asset, I can actually go up the top here in my asset menu bar, and I can clone a particular part if I want. So that makes it really easy to configure a part. So let's look at this one. We'll make it 100, nice and fat, and then we can make it 500 sticking out. And you can see as I once again move it, it updates. Okay. Now that's how I want to do my nozzle, and I can clone it. So I can select the nozzle which I have here, click the clone button, and then you can see I have the exact same parameters up here. And I just place it into the scene and it's added. Also, I can configure my nozzle for different placements. So radial is what you see here, where it goes around the edges. I can also do, for example, hillside, and that brings the nozzle in, which is parallel with the surface. I also can add things like elbows. So I have an elbow in here on this nozzle. So let me just bring that in here. So I've configured this this system to be an elbow. Okay, and then I can actually change once again the radius, for example, and I can look at the projections. So I can make it come out a bit further, and I can actually make it a bit longer. And then I can also change the angle too. So if I wanted to move the angles around, I can do that. The towards angle is something which you can type in, but what also it can do, it can just rotate the nozzle around its base here. So if I make 90, for example, you see that it actually spins around 0. Okay, so there's my very simple pressure vessel that I've got going. I want to also put some internals in. So we have two types of internals. We have vortex breakers and we have baffle plates down the menu. So let's put a baffle plate in. And as you can see, as soon as I snap it on the inside, the shell goes transparent, so I can see where I want to place it. And I'll place it in just the area here. Once it's inside, I can also select the vessel and change its visibility so I can see what's in there. And then I can say select the baffle plate, and I can then do things like the slices, the tops and bottoms. So I can move this to how I want to trigger it up. And that's the top, that's the bottom, for example. And then also I can make it quite thick if I want to do something like a demistomat or something like that. Okay, nice and thin. Lastly, I want to put a vortex breaker in, which I can then add a nozzle to. So let's put the vortex breaker. This only snaps to the bottom in horizontal vessels. Other than that, we can, in vertical, it will snap to the shell. Okay. So next I'll get my nozzle here, and what I'll do is I will put it in to the bottom and snap it into the vortex breaker. So let's make that 100. Okay. And what I can do then is you can see it now cuts itself off and it's connected nicely into the vortex breaker. Okay. Lastly, I want to put a sump in. Let's put a sump. Once again, it's locked to the bottom. And then I can put some more thickness to it. And I can also change its exterior projection. So I can make it quite large. And I can then change the head type. So you can see if I select hemispherical, the head updates and changes here. Okay, that's my pressure vessel. So what I'll do, I'm going to save it. So TechnologyCatalogue 2 and click save. And the last thing I'll do is add some welds to it. So we have three types of welds. We have our circular weld and our lateral welds, but we also have a weld wizard, and I'll use that at the moment. So as we snap it to the surface, you can see it automatically puts circular welds in and it puts lateral welds in. And what I can do is I can change my circular welds, for example, to 4. I can change my lateral welds to 4 as well. As you can see, they're built up on the vessel. And then I can actually do my angle offset, so I can move these around and get the angle offset how I want to do it. And as you can see now, the welds are then placed onto the pressure vessel. Okay, I'll save that once again. Now, what I want to also do is I want to export the model. So one thing I didn't mention is that we can export these models out as ABM files and open in an offline version. And also we can bring them in. So open ABM means that we can bring in offline versions. Also too, this import PTS on the side is we can bring in point clouds in PTS format, and you can use that as a skeleton to build up your pressure vessel. So although they are points and they're meshes, they're not a solid geometry that you can export as a model out. So you can bring in this point cloud and use it as like a guide, bring a drawing in that you can then fit your pressure vessel to and build up your 3D model. Okay, so I've built it. What I'm going to do now is export it out, and then we'll have another video on what you can do with this export model. So I will export. There's 6 different export formats. ABM, for example, is the asset builder model that you can bring into the offline version. OBJ is a standard 3D format. STL and STL Lite are also 3D formats, but this is just the geometry. So it's just the shape. It's not the hierarchy of all the parts and their names. STL Lite is a reduced complexity. And we've got QPro AB, which allows you to push this model into our robotic simulation software. And then you can, for example, simulate an inspection robot inside this vessel to do pre-operational planning. So let's save this as OBJ, and then we'll have another video on what we can do with it. So we'll export it out. It's time to do its thing. Okay, and we're going to save. And there we go. It is done. So I can then close the model, and at any time I can open it up and re-edit it or clone it. Great. So what you saw in the video was me quickly building a vessel and then being able to save it and export it out. As you can see, it was relatively easy. Just a bit of a refresher on what you saw. So in the middle here, within the Asset Builder's main program, we have a 3D area where you actually build your vessel. And then up the top, under the 3D menu, is where you interact with it. Also too, on the left-hand side, there's a main menu where you can save, import, and export, and then you can export your files out accordingly. One thing I might have touched upon in the video was that we also can bring in point clouds into Asset Builder, and Asset Builder supports PTS point clouds, where you can bring it into your 3D world, scale, and then manipulate them depending on what the input format is. And then you can use it as a skeleton in order to build the vessel around it. So you mightn't have drawings, but you might have a point cloud. And you can bring that in and then use that as your map to build your model around. Because often when you use point clouds, they can be very dense. They can also be dirty, if I say it that way. And you can then be able to use that as a reference. And then down the bottom, you have your parts library, which changes depending on if you do vertical or horizontal pressure vessels. So the question is, what can you do with it, and what people have been using it for? So what a lot of our clients have been using for is to actually start building their 3D library. So they might have lots of old drawings and they have no digital side of things, and they only have 1 or 2 CAD licenses. And what they've been using is Asset Builder instead to build up their 3D library. And then they've been using it and sharing it with people within their organization. They've also been using it in reporting. And this is where you can import a 3D model into any Microsoft software that you have, and I'll show you an example of that in a moment. And you can use this as a reference rather than putting in drawings and things like that. Also, people have been using it for in PDFs, and things that we're working on internally is to convert these 3D models into what's called 3D PDFs, And 3D PDFs is something further along our roadmap, but that allows you to interact with the model within the 3D environment, but inside a PDF. So you can show a report with an interactable 3D model. Also, what a lot of people have been doing is using Asset Builder within RoboSim, which is our robotic simulation software for pre-operational planning, and that's in conjunction with GE Inspection Robotics. And you can then build your vessel and then export it out and bring it into a simulation software where you can then simulate and pre-operationally plan your robotic inspection. And also, they've been using these models to find new ways of accessing, for example, parts of the vessels through non-intrusive inspection, to change the work scope, and you can interact with the 3D model with everyone, and then work out your plan and do it all, I would say virtually, prior to going out in the field. So when you have a clear and efficient way of executing your work scope. So here's an example of reporting. In the PowerPoint presentation itself, this is the 3D model, so very, very easy to bring that in. And then on the right-hand side, I have a couple of examples where the model's been brought into inspection reports, work scope reports, and you can then annotate that model. Also, down the bottom here is that you can bring it into your PDF, and that's an example of developing a 3D PDF. And within the Acrobat technology, once you load your model in, you can then interact with it. And when I say interact, you can move it around in 3D. You can also slice and then hide parts and have a look at your internals, for example. So, a more concrete example is, where to use and why to use 3D models within office reports, for example. So often we find slides are very static. They're drawings, they're pictures, they're marked up with boxes, and these are often screen grabs from the PDFs, and there's all boxes all the way around it and notes and everything, and it's quite confusing. Where 3D helps us actually have a better understanding of what we're doing, and us humans are really good at spatial analysis, and we're really good at 3D, so we actually grasp something a lot better in 3D than we do in 2D. So if you have Office 365, very easy, insert 3D models from file, and you can pick the OBJ format, which you can export out of Asset Builder to import a new model, and then you can manipulate it and move it. An example is as follows. So here I brought in the asset that we built in the video, and then I've just started labeling all the areas that we wanted to know. And then I put some notes on, this is a UT thickness that we need to do this area. Now you can use the same model again through your reports, and the nice thing about it too, you can add animations, and then you can actually make this model move, and this is all right from any Office document. So very, very simple to use. So in a matter of moments, you can get a drawing, build a vessel, export it out. You can do pre-operational planning if you use robotic software, or you can use your Word documents, your PowerPoint, Excel documents in order to interact with the model, mark it up, and then send it out to the field. And if you have crews out in the field, they can pull the model out of the database by exporting it, add to the model, for example, if there's some things missing. So as we know, drawings sometimes are different, and then re-import that back into the database, and then you have a collection of your models. So what's coming next with Asset Builder? So a little bit of history first. We started in 2016 with GE in order to develop not particularly this, but a way that we can work better with the Petrobot project on simulation of robotic inspection tools, and that needed a 3D model. So we worked on that as part of the project, and in 2018 we came out with a spin-off, which is Asset Builder, and that was market ready. Through 2019, we've been doing improvements, making sure there's more parts coming in, and we actually had a Chamber of Commerce in the Netherlands Innovation Prize for what we're doing. And now in Q3 2020, we're about to launch Asset Builder version 2, which is implementing new asset classes and a lot more proved functionality in new parts in that. So just to touch upon our roadmap, as I said before, Q3 Asset Builder V2 launch. And then that's redoing the pressure vessels that we have. So what you saw in the parts won't change, but the way you interact with them and the more parameterized and drawing upon the ASME codes, for example, these become a lot more closer to the parts that you have in the codes. We're bringing in pipe racks and piping. So this is, for example, pipes, flanges, the pumps, pipe rack systems, and everything like that. And you can actually build your piping circuit from your drawings. Then we're bringing in above ground storage tanks is next. So that's basic version. So that's the floor, the shell, the roof, floating internals, for example, sumps. And then we're going on to the advanced storage tank phase. And that's where you can do the shell, for example, and do shell courses, different layouts on the floor, different sketch plates along the sides. And then each plate is actually ID'd, and then you can do more detailed analysis on that. So we're hoping to have this, the rest of the roadmap coming out through 2020, early 2021. But first off, the piping racks and pipes will be brought into Asset Builder, and that will complement what we're already doing with pressure vessels. So that's it. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. My contact details here, and I'll hand back to Hamid.
Thanks, Tim, for the presentation on Asset Builder. We certainly learned a lot about the solution. I'm going to open up the Q&A session for today's webinar. I would like to ask our audience to ask their questions on the right-hand side of the screen. There's a chat box, and they can type their questions there. I see there's a question coming in from Carl from Canada. Good morning, Carl. And he's asking the question, can you use the drawing tool in the field using a tablet, or you need an actual computer?
Yeah, good question, Carl. Welcome from Canada. It's often better to use a a computer, but that can be just a very simple laptop. However, if you so it's not touch enabled, basically I think what you're coming on. We are looking at how we put that in, and we've actually trialed that with a few clients, and they find in the end using a mouse is far better. However, if you have I'll just bring it here. For example, these type of ruggedized laptops, which are Windows 10 based and have a browser, you can plug a mouse into it, and then actually it works just the same. It's just not the touch side of things, which becomes a little bit tricky, and we find that you're better off with a mouse. And our users originally started with touch, but they always move back to the mouse. So yes, you can have it in the field if it's something that you can plug a mouse into, and a Chrome web browser.
Perfect. Thank you, Tim. And I see there are no other questions coming in. I'll ask you questions while our audience are thinking of other questions they want to ask. And my question, something that I'm curious to know about, is who are the key basically target user group of this technology? Who in the industry, in the oil and energy sector or oil and gas sector, could benefit the most from the technology Asset Builder?
Yeah, okay, so I think that's a two-part question. Is that the target user group essentially is everyone in the value chain, and that's who we have using it at the moment. So end users, for example, are using it to build the digital twins of their assets, and to get more insight in the digitalization side of things. So they're converting the drawings into 3D. Our clients, such as inspection service providers, for example, are using these 3D models in order to do their planning of their inspections, and also they're looking at how they use it to put data and to actually show their work scopes. And then our technology providers are also using it to, for example, in the case of GE Inspection Robotics, they're using Asset Builder in order to do their simulations with their robotic tools to show that yes, you can get up into the nozzle. Yes, you can get under the baffle plate. And then all three of these user markets are starting to use it together in order to come together around the table and actually plan their inspections out. So there is no target user group as such. We're finding everyone's using it for different needs throughout the value chain.
Gotcha. Thanks. Once again, I'd like to ask our audience if they have any questions, they can type it in on the right-hand side of the screen on the chat box. I'll ask one more question, actually. I'll try to type it in myself. And that's mostly, it's regarding the business impact. If you can tell us basically an example of the business impact, for example, saving time for work prep, etc. If you could elaborate on that,
yeah,
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So there's been many times where people have been in the field with 2D drawings, and they've been looking for nozzles, for example, or for locations that they're supposed to do work on, and they can't actually locate them because they can't decipher the model, or the drawings are very old. I don't know how many times I've sat there and looked at drawings, and since it's very, very bad quality and hand drawn in often cases, I couldn't decipher which nozzle was which. So increasing using the digital aspect of it, you can actually save time by having the model, having it on a computer in the field, and then you can look at the model and go, oh yeah, that nozzle up the top there is the one I want to target. So that saves a lot of time than you actually looking for your work scope. Also too, time saving in preparation. So along with the pre-operational planning side, so back to that, you can actually save time by having the model, and then you can plan everything out. For example, traditional work scopes are N1, N2, N3, N4, M1, like that. But if you're doing a non-intrusive inspection, how to know where to enter and what to do using a 3D model can allow you to plan that prior to going out in the field. And then when you're in the field, you can execute it a lot quicker.
Great. Thanks, Tim. That's clear. And I see one more question coming from Arthur. He's asking, can you also import the scanned documents?
Yeah, great question, Arthur. So not into Asset Builder. So Asset Builder is really designed to build the model and not to append the data on it. But in our product roadmaps and our development cycle, we're actually looking at a thing called Asset Annotator, and that's the ability to bring the model in and then append data, for example, models, so scan documents and everything to the model for it to be part of the asset database. So not part of Asset Builder, but it is something that we have in the works, and we'll be interested to hear more about what your thoughts are on that.
Great, thanks. And I think there's a last question I'm going to take from Carl. Actually, as two, we'll try to answer both of them, I guess, at the same time. The first question Carl is asking is, are the components such as flanges, piping based on ANSI, ASME standards?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So with the flanges and the piping, it's all based off the codes, so the ANSI and the ASME codes, and they'll be parameter driven from the NPS, the nominal pipe size. So you put in the size, and then if you connect a flange to the end of the pipe, it's then built based on the codes and the tables that we have, and it will be to spec.
Fantastic. And the following that question from Carl again, can you also put TML locations on the models?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So that's something we're adding in V2, is to have a part where you can put a round orb, for example, and that orb can be a TML or a CML, for example, to have it actually as a part. But often what people have been using it now in the current version is they're just been importing the 3D model into a Word file and then marking it up with shapes. And this goes back to the question with Arthur as well. In Asset Annotator, this is where you'll be able to then enrich this 3D model with all that type of inspection data. But currently at the moment, with V1, people have been either using it in a Word document, or they've been actually using one of the primitives, so the cylinders that we have that are down the bottom, to put in a small circle, and they've been naming it TML1, for example. So quite interesting to see what they've been using. So the answer is yes, with some tweaks.
Yeah. Perfect. I think that kind of brings us to the end of the Q&A session. Before we wrap up today's basically session, I'd like to raise a couple of other points. One, if you guys have any questions from Tim, you can directly contact him. If you go to the TechnologyCatalogue.com and Asset Builder page, you can write any message or any questions you have, and you directly can contact him. If you prefer, you could also send us a direct email at info@technologycatalogue.com, and we can put you in touch with Tim. And so you can also do that as well. And also the last thing that I wanted to mention before we let you guys go is that today's recording for today's webinar is going to be available on our website. If you go to the webinar section of technologycatalogue.com, and you can there also check our upcoming webinars for the future. I want to thank Tim for presenting us Asset Builder today. Thank you very much, and thank our audience for listening and staying with us today and having an interactive session. Thank you, folks, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, Hamid. Fantastic as usual.
Bye.
Bye.